Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. And today I have a special guest with us. His name is John Poston, and he is from Texas, and he's the founder of Daymark Living. Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Howdy, as we say down here, right?
Yeah, howdy. Right. So before we get into talking about Daymark, I'm going to just start the interview like I do with everybody. And let's go all the way back to the beginning, because you do have a son with special needs. He doesn't have autism, but he has Down syndrome, correct? Right. Okay.
And he's a twin.
Oh, he is a twin. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Is the twin also a boy?
Girl. Margot.
A girl. Okay. So they're fraternal. Okay. I have twins too. My girls are twins. So
identical or?
No, they're fraternal. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was funny because they look so much alike. In the beginning, we didn't know if they were identical or fraternal. They had to do a test on them. Right. So yeah. I don't know how old yours are, but back then it took us a couple of weeks to know. So, all right. So that's interesting. So twins are considered a high risk pregnancy, right? At least they were with me, right? Any multiples were considered high risk. So they kind of monitor you a little bit more, maybe do a couple extra ultrasounds and things like that, just to make sure that that they're developing. And they want to make sure that you don't go into labor too early and that they're too small, right? So did they test them for Down syndrome? Did you know ahead of time that your son was going to have it or no?
We did not know. And they did test without asking. It's just, I think they just give the test and the moms don't know what they're testing for. But I guess Margot masked Michael, meaning, it didn't come across. So we didn't know until after he was born.
Okay. And then when did you find out?
Actually, so they were both in ICU because they're a little bit early. They were, fine, but they were a little bit early. He was 4 pounds, 10 ounces, and she was 6'2". And the third day in ICU, actually an intern came up to me and said she thought that she suspected Michael had Down syndrome. And then it all from there, when I found out more and the doctors came in, I think they knew. I'm positive they knew when he was born. I think they just didn't want to tell us.
Right. They didn't want to tell you right away.
I think the doctor just wanted to deliver the babies and go. He didn't want to give bad news to Wendy, the mom, Michael's mom.
Yeah, because I'm thinking when I had my son Robbie, the one with autism, it was the pediatrician that came in afterwards, and they do all kinds of tests and things like that. And he told me, okay, well, we think we're going to look at this and we're going to look at that, but so it's not the OB that usually says it. It's a pediatrician usually, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the OB knew.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying, but it's not the OB that probably tells you,
No, right. But I think it's changed a lot. They're 26 years old now, and
right.
Things have changed a lot. I mean, I think some of the staff knew and just didn't want to break the news. And now it's, accepted a little bit better than it was 26 years ago.
Right. Where are you located in Texas?
Dallas, Texas.
In Dallas. Okay. So is that where they were born, in the hospital in Dallas?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So you started to find out when he was in the hospital. So what did you do now? What did they tell you to do? What did they recommend?
There weren't many recommendations, which back then they just said, they just told us that they would send off the blood samples and tell us, and it'd take a week or two to get the results back. But I knew once they said that, I knew exactly that was it. I mean, I could tell he had the features and his, the flaccid, the muscle tone, his legs were kind of, when he laid down, they were like frog leg, whereas Margot, his sister, just the different muscle tone and the look. But, it was a shock, and then you don't get much direction or advice. So that's when we, started our journey of improving his life and others like him. So,
So then was his development a little bit delayed?
Yeah.
I mean, you really had someone to compare him to, literally side by side.
Yep.
Yeah.
She started walking at 10 months, first step, and his was almost 2.5 years old.
Oh, wow.
He was scooting around. He never crawled. He did this kind of army crawl where he would scoot with his hands and one leg straight out and the other one crossed over it, and he could keep up with her. I mean, so he could get around. He was mobile. But then one day, you pray for him to walk, and then one day he gets up. Next thing you know, he's running. But it took a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then what about, so then they start preschool. So what happened then? Your daughter went off to preschool, and where did your son go? I'm sorry, what are their names? Margot and
So Michael.
Okay.
There's an older brother Blake that's 2 years older.
Oh, okay.
So there was a couple of, So
Okay.
they were born 4 days before Blake's second birthday. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you asked, because they were born and we start thinking about, how to improve his life and what can we do. And we ran across a school in Alabama called the Rise School. And we had no idea what early education meant until we discovered this school there. And so we visited, met a lady named Dr. Martha Cook, and it's a preschool for kids with and without disabilities, intellectual disabilities. A typical school classroom has 10 kids, 7 have an intellectual disability, and 3 are mainstream. So we visited, and when we left there, we knew that that's what we wanted to do. So we ended up coming back to Dallas and decided to raise the money to start a Rise school in Dallas, a preschool, because there wasn't anywhere to send Michael. There wasn't a preschool that would take Michael. So
What's interesting, I thought you were going to say that you packed up and moved because the school was there, but instead you went and learned what they did and brought it back.
Yep. With the help of Martha Cook. She helped us. We raised the money, started with one classroom, 8 kids. There were 5 boys with Down syndrome and 3 mainstream girls, which included Margot and 2 of her friends that are still her friends today. So it was it was an unusual school, I guess unusual situation, or because people would ask, even my own family, somebody in my own family said, why would I send my normal kid to a school with a bunch of kids with special needs? And I said, well, you'll just have to see. And but the ratio of it's 3 to 1 student to teacher ratio, and they're all the lead teachers have master's degree, and they're all early education specialists. So anyway, we started with one classroom in April of '98, and then it's expanded. Now there's 8 Rise schools, and the one in Dallas has 60 kids in 6 classrooms.
Wow.
It's a preschool, so it prepares them for a mainstream kindergarten.
So there was nothing for him, you're saying?
No.
That's wow. Okay, so but they had a mainstream kindergarten though. Like they were ready for them. Like you start this preschool, now they were ready for them once they hit kindergarten.
No.
Funny, I should ask. Right?
No. They still had. So it was funny. The newest teacher at his grade school, and she ended up getting Michael and another kid from the Rise school with Down syndrome in her classroom. And I think it was because the other teachers are like, they just knew of what had happened in the past. Well, this teacher, at the end of the year, she said, Michael and Christopher, they knew how to behave and how to, learn. And so they had 5 years of schooling where they knew how to, come in, sit down, listen, learn, follow instructions, where the other kids, were just coming in and like, throwing their backpack and, going crazy. Mm-hmm. But so anyway, so then the next year she had 4 kids with Down syndrome in her kindergarten class because she had such a great experience. So it's changed the perception of how kindergarten kids with intellectual disabilities are perceived. They can learn, and they do learn.
Right.
They just need a little more help and guidance, especially early on.
So the other preschools that are out there, the other Rise schools, are you still involved with those, or it's something that just expanded on its own?
So my former father-in-law and I, he's really the one behind it. And we started Dallas in April of '98, and he's from Houston. And so he said, we've got to start one in Houston because that's my hometown. And that's what happened. So he goes, we'll do Houston and Dallas. I'll take responsibility for, Houston, and you take Dallas for operations, funding operations, that is. And he said, hopefully other people will come in and want to copy what we're doing, and we'll give them everything except for money. And so that's exactly what happened. The first call we got was from Denver. And so a guy that had a kid with Down syndrome called me, and he and I had a mutual friend, and he had heard about what we did. And so he started the Denver Rise School. And then next was Austin, Corpus Christi, and then Oklahoma City, and then another one in Alabama. So we're all related and part of an affiliation, the Rise School affiliation, where we have the same curriculum. So if you move from Corpus to Houston to Dallas, it's a same curriculum and similar setup with ratio of student to teacher, but everybody's financially independent.
Okay, so speaking of financial, how did you raise money to start it? Like, who do you go to?
The community here has been incredibly supportive. I'm lucky that I grew up in an area that has a lot of people that support their community, and I was the first of my friends, I think, to have a kid with special needs, and everybody rallied around it, and we just did fundraisers, and then now it's become a popular charity among the people here in Dallas. So
did you start a 501c3?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And then what kind of fundraisers did you do? I ask these questions because if there's other parents in other states that want to start something, I want to sort of give them some background, here's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it.
So the first thing we did was we put together a board, it's a board of governors, if you will, but just with names that people would recognize that would lend credibility to what we were trying to do. So that was the first thing. And that way, when we went out and said we want to start a preschool for kids with intellectual disabilities, we had names that people recognized. And we had a curriculum, we had a role model that we were modeling our school after, which was in University of Alabama. So we were starting from scratch, but we were just basically opening up a franchise. So it was a proven method, proven curriculum. So we were able to raise, I think in the first, we raised $1.5 million, $1.5 million, and that funded 3 years. So we could go 3 years without raising any more money. And
wow.
Yeah. So I think that was important too, that people that give money want to know that it's not going to go away, that they're just giving money and then you're going to.
Right. Right. So that paid for the building, but I guess it's also paying people's salaries and stuff too out of that?
Just the salaries. No, so especially in the beginning, we asked everything for free. I mean, I found a church that was willing to give us space. And so they actually, it was just, how things work. They had a school that was moving out, and the new minister wanted, to give back and do something with the community. And we knocked on his door, and he said, perfect. So we started, and, start small. We started with one class and grew from there. And so we didn't have a building. It was all for operations. And that's the most expensive thing, is the operation.
All right. So let's get back to Michael then. So he went into kindergarten, and then he was in public school, and he was mainstreamed in a regular public school with typical kids.
Yep, that's the goal. So the Rise School works. So Margot and Michael are a good example, that they're twins. And so they started the Rise School, and then she graduates at age appropriate, goes into, at 5 years old, goes into kindergarten. He stays an extra year at the Rise School. So he was a year behind her all through school. Yeah, it prepares them for mainstream kindergarten. And of course, he's going to be in, some special needs classes along the way. But, that early intervention is key, because they're developing, their brain's developing, they're developing, physically and emotionally, everything else. It's just super important to start early.
Yeah.
Being able to let go early is key.
Was he in regular classes with the other kids, like gym and art and all those kind of things, like with everybody else? And then. Yeah.
And then they'd pull him out for
reading or whatever
was necessary.
Yeah. I was just curious if he had an aide or, a paraprofessional with him, or no.
No.
Okay. He knew where to go, how to get himself to his classes and all that.
Yeah.
And how did the other kids treat him in school?
Great. I mean, he was, he's been a fan favorite, if you will, for a long time. He's just, we're lucky. He's an intelligent kid. He's fun. He's very social.
Mhm.
And they, like I said, he had a brother that was 2 years older than him, who was a, great little athlete, and people liked him. And so that grade,
Mhm.
loved Michael. And Margot, his sister,
Mhm.
was a year above him. So all her friend group, guys and girls, loved Michael. So we were
Right.
very lucky in that respect that there was a path that was burned, before him, that he got to follow. And everybody knew Michael
Right.
as he came into grade school, middle school, and high school because of his brother and sister.
Right. That's great. That's
Yeah.
really great that he had
It
them
was-
ahead of him
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Very lucky.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So graduation. So did he go to school till 18 or till 21?
He went until 21. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking about that because Daymark Living, I'm trying to remember how old he was when he went through 21. It wasn't finished by the time he was 21.
Okay. All right. So let's get to Daymark. So obviously you were, thinking about his future, right? After he graduated school, and what was he going to do
Mhm.
next with his life, right? And I read an article, so I think I kind of know the answer, but I'm going to let you talk about it. What was your inspiration really for starting Daymark? And, tell us about your thought process and what was going on and why you wanted to start it.
Bottom line is I want him to have a life like you and I do. So basically, I wanted Michael to have a life like you and I do, and his brother and sister. And I saw that, life after high school for this population, almost all of them are going back home into the extra bedroom and, watching movies or playing video games, or mom or dad, either one of the parents has control of his calendar, and that's his social life is dependent on his parents. And I didn't want that for Michael. I wanted him to be like everybody else, and after high school, go, or close after high school, go somewhere like college, or gain independence. I mean, that I want him to be as independent as possible. And so that was the thought process. There was nowhere around here or anywhere that I visited that I was willing to leave Michael. And so that's when I said, well, if I'm not willing to leave him anywhere, I'm not happy with it, then I'll create my own.
Right. I know when I read the article, something that you had said, it really resonated with me, that you just said it really. For my son, Robbie, he started having seizures when he was 17, and he started getting sick every weekend and every time he was off of school. When he was around 19, it was when it started to click with me. He didn't want to be home anymore. And even though mentally I thought of him as a toddler, but biologically he's 19 years old, and he normally would be going to school, going off to college, just like his older siblings would. And I realized he normally would be in college, and he wanted to be with his friends, and he wanted to live his own life and be independent. He didn't want to hang out with his mother all the time,
Right.
So I read that you had said that, because he had the older siblings, and, you wanted him to have that same experience where he could go off and be with his peers and live independently and stuff. And I said, yeah, he's right. He's exactly right. And that's, yeah.
And what happened, so his peer group, mainstream peer group, graduated high school, and he gets to stay until he's 21, but that's not any fun either, because all his group that he knows in his class is gone. And so
Right.
then he's relegated to this classroom that they won't let him go have lunch with the mainstream. He's got to stay in the special needs classroom, and he got sick of it. So, you have all that freedom and you're with your class. And then once you hit, at least where we were, once his class graduates, then he's, like I said, relegated to that special needs classroom and curriculum, and no longer really part of the whole high school situation. So that's where, like you said, he doesn't want to hang out with his mom or me all the time. He wants to be as independent as possible. And we're extremely lucky that he is an intelligent kid and can do a lot of things. I mean, others, just, it depends on your situation. But even if, I don't know how affected they are, any sort of independence makes them happier, right? I mean, the more independent you are, the happier you are. That's, I think, the bottom line for everybody.
Okay, so let's talk about Daymark. Tell everybody what Daymark is.
So Daymark Living is a residential community for adults with intellectual disabilities, 18 years and above, 18 years and older. That if you think of senior living, the senior living model, except for seniors aren't living there, it's adults with intellectual disabilities. And selfishly, I developed the business model of that would, help Michael and others like him, because he doesn't need one-on-one help. And also business-wise, that keeps the costs down, right? So if someone needs one-on-one help, Daymark Living can accommodate that. And we don't expect them to be perfect. So prompting and, things like that is fine. But our ratio is about 1 to 8, one coach for every 8 residents. But I would encourage those that, have that higher need to go for it, right? It's just more expensive because you need more staff. And I always say that the easiest part is raising capital to build the building. The difficult part is keeping it going, is the operations. But the idea behind it was that I wanted him to live like Blake and Margot, but there wasn't any place where he could do that. And I started thinking of, senior living, and I saw a brochure that a developer had that was raising money, that they built student housing. And I saw these, they built neighborhoods with these cottages, and it had pictures of college kids walking around the community. And I thought, why couldn't that be Michael and his peer group? And that's how it all started. So I took that model and added, an amenity base, a clubhouse, a classroom building, and a fitness center with big resort style pool. So it literally is, he's living a better life than his dad. That's for sure. He's got a nice little resort style, lifestyle down there. But that was it. And then so I went around and I visited other communities to see if, to learn from them and see if any place was, good for Michael. They all do wonderful work, but none of them were exactly what I wanted. So I had, meetings with town hall meetings with, up to 150 people would show up, to one-on-one meetings with people like you, parents, with future residents, and getting feedback, what people wanted. I knew what Michael wanted. I knew what I wanted, and I wanted to, hear whatever. You can't satisfy everybody, but we developed a program based on all that feedback for a year and a half or 2 of doing that. And then I put it together like a real estate deal and raised money. Now, the difference, I raised money from people that have a connection to either the Rise School, Michael, or they have a family member or friend with intellectual disability, so that they understood what we were doing. So that was pretty unique. So they'd have the patience, since we're doing something different, and so they'd have the understanding of what we're doing.
And did you do fundraisers again, or writing letters to corporations?
So Daymark,
or what?
No. So my joke is I can't afford another nonprofit, which Rise School is, the nonprofit.
Right.
That's why I was thinking of senior living. I was like, well, senior living is a successful for-profit business model that started out nonprofit. So I started researching that and thought, well, why can't, this be a category of real estate? And I think it will be. And so I put it together like a for-profit real estate deal. It is a for-profit, not that it's made a profit yet. We're still leasing up, and then I do have a nonprofit, component. I have that. I don't know if you read, but the Tulipalooza fundraiser.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah,
I did that to raise awareness for Daymark, because there were communities that were just, an idea that were getting press, and we weren't, and we were under construction. So came up with the tulip idea to raise awareness for Daymark,
but that's after it was built. No, didn't the tulips come after it was built?
While it was being built.
Oh, while it was being built. Okay. Yeah. So how did you find the land?
I was commuting back and forth from Austin, Texas to Dallas. My job was in Austin, and Waxahachie is 30 minutes south of Dallas on the way to Austin. And I just, kept dreaming of this idea as I drive back and forth. And I called a broker off a sign and told him what I was thinking, and asked him if there was any land. And sure enough, the perfect piece of land was right there. And I didn't think it would work in Dallas because I thought, one, it'd be expensive, and two, Dallas is faster paced. Waxahachie is a wonderful town, great business town. It's 40,000 people versus however many million, are here. So the pace is not as fast, and they've embraced our community and our population, better than I ever dreamt that they would. And and there's plenty of jobs in Waxahachie and plenty of retail amenities. So it's a great situation for the residents there.
Okay, so you find your piece of land, but what I'm trying to figure out is where you got the money from to purchase this land without a
Investors.
501c.
So 501c3 is a nonprofit.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Only because I did a small event and, asking people for money, people just kept asking, what's the name of the foundation? I'm like, well, no, I don't have one, so I had to create one. But for a project this size, okay, so they're investors. So they've invested in this and they're looking for money back on this investment someday.
Yeah. Yep. And the cool thing about it though, is the investors all said, we love what you're doing. And like I said, they all have a connection either to Michael or to, intellectual disability. So they understand what we're doing. They said, if we just get our money back, we would be, over the moon. And we want to see this get off the ground and work. But I went out and it's like a regular, say, multifamily or real estate for-profit deal. And what I would say to people out there, if they don't want to do a for-profit, you don't have to make a profit. But I would definitely break even, or if you're going to run a deficit, I would go raise the money first to make up for that deficit, because otherwise every year you're going to be out busting your rear to raise that money to cover the cost. And if you can't, then guess what happens?
Right.
You have to shut it down.
Exactly.
So my thought was, if you're profitable, you're sustainable. And I wanted to know that Michael could live there the rest of his life, and it would be around. With the Rise School, we never had more than 3 months of money. So I'm constantly, raising money, not knowing if it's going to be there. Now it is, because we're part of the YMCA. So we know it's going to be around forever now. But for 16 years, it was a constant struggle. It was rewarding, but it was a constant struggle. That's why.
Right. Yeah. So I want to let everybody listening to understand why I'm even having this interview, because this has been my dream for years. I don't even know how I got the dream. I think I went out to see clients that lived out near farmland someday, and they moved from the suburbs where I am out there. And then they had all this land and these extra buildings. And I said, what are you going to do with it? And they're like, we don't know. And I was like, oh man, I know what I would do with it. I would build, exactly what you did. And then somehow I came across, an article about what you did. And I was like, oh, man, he's doing my dream. He's doing it. I got to figure out how this is done. So that's why I'm asking you so many questions, because I want to know. And
Well,
I think other people could be doing it too, all around.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I like about Waxahachie is that the residents integrate into the community. So it's not on a farm, an hour outside.
Right. They're not isolated. Right.
Right. It's integration. I mean, they get up, they live life like you and I. They get up, go to breakfast in the dining room, and then go off. Half of them go off to work, and then the other half, there's programming there that are helping them, become eligible for a job. Meaning it's mostly socialization and social skills, I should say.
Right.
So what we want as a goal is they go off and either work, volunteer, or do something in the community, and then they come back and there's activities and family, friends are there, and they've got a life that's engaged, and they're happy and living life.
They have probably a better life than most of the rest of us, because they're constantly have friends around and things to do and activities and all kinds of stuff. They're probably happy as a clam. So as I was planning this, just daydreaming in my head, I had thought about what you were talking about. I'm like, okay, it's one thing to raise the money to build the buildings, right? And to get all that done, but then how do you sustain it afterwards, right? And I was like, there's got to be some type of a business, something that is run out of there, some way to have money constantly coming in so that it doesn't fold in a few years, that it just keeps, maintaining. And you came up with an ingenious idea with the tulips. So tell everybody about that.
Yeah, the tulips really came about because we weren't getting any publicity. and we were trying to lease up in the lease up stage. And so I just, whatever, well, I don't know why I did it, but thought it would bring attention to us. And it did. We were in USA Today, People Magazine, Texas Monthly. So all the newspapers in Texas, we actually, our first year, we planted 1 million tulips, which is insane now that I look back. But so it worked and brought a lot of attention.
And you actually went to
It
Holland,
brought-
though, it said. In the article I read, it said you actually went to Holland and talked to somebody out there and figured out how to do it. And then came back and planted the tulips.
That is true. I asked someone here in Texas that was doing something, had a tulip farm, but they didn't want to have a second one. And so I'd kind of a little bit given up on trying it. But then I thought one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. I've got nothing else to do. It's spring break. I'm going to go to Amsterdam and figure this out. And the stories that I have from there are crazy. Just from the very first guy I met, the driver, Andy, he and his wife for 20 years had volunteered to help adults with Down syndrome in his town. And so because I was telling him what I was trying to do, and he's like, well, I don't know anything about tulips, but this is what my wife and this is where we volunteer.
Right.
So then he introduced me to a
There's your
farmer
first
friend
sign
who
you're
was
on
a
the right
tulip farmer.
track, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes me to a farm where his friend is, and I'm talking to him and I'm telling him what Daymark and what I want to do with the tulips and why. And they said, well, we understand. Anya was her name, and she was a special needs school teacher that had taught special needs. And then they had a little coffee shop at their farm and pastries. And they said, and matter of fact, see all these pastries over at our coffee shop, they're made by adults with Down syndrome. So it was just insane how it all was connected. So I came back and, I knew enough to be dangerous, and then met with a guy in Waxahachie, my real estate broker who found the land. And he said his best client is a Dutch farmer and would I want to meet him? So the Dutch farmer just so happens to be best friends with a tulip importer that provides all the tulip bulbs for the Dallas Arboretum. So next thing I know, I'm going to lunch with a Dutch farmer who ends up planting all our tulips, and the biggest importer in maybe in the United States of tulip bulbs. So we got lucky. It was all meant to be. And so that it was not only to raise awareness for Daymark, but since it is a for-profit, I wanted to be able to provide scholarships to families that couldn't otherwise afford to live there. So my goal is 20% are on some sort of scholarship. And so through Tulipalooza, we raised money for residents to live there that couldn't otherwise afford to live there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, Tulipalooza is what you call it. So every year when the tulips bloom, it's like a tourist attraction that people come to.
Yep.
And then they pay to come in and see the tulips and buy tulips.
And that's a 501c3 that's called Poston Gardens, but that's a 501c. So tickets are $20 for an adult, and you pick tulips, and everything goes to the charity.
Okay. And when is that? I know what it is here. What is it for you? Is that April, beginning of April, or?
This year, we're doing March 18th through the 27th.
Oh, wow.
It's a 10
That's early.
We only do 10 day. Yeah, it's a 10-day fundraiser, March 18th through 27th. And we also include 12 other North Texas charities so they can leverage off what we're doing and raise money as well.
So people can come and visit you during that week. You broke up a little bit. You were saying it's $20 to get in? Wait, say that again.
20
You
for an
broke
adult,
up.
$5 for kids.
Okay, $20 for
for an
adults.
adult.
Okay, and $5 for kids. Okay, and then people can purchase the tulips when they're there.
So you you pick them.
I know my sister's a photographer. She takes pictures of kids a lot, and I learned through her. There's a lavender farm here in New Jersey, and you can't just go show up and take pictures. You have to pay to go to take pictures, and photographers get charged even more. They get charged $100 to $200 to come for their time to take photos. So like I never realized that there was a business like that, So then when I saw the tulips, I said, oh, okay, now I know how they're making their money, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the photographers, if they want to have, we've had a few that want to come in and take over a section, but it's mostly just the customers that come in and pay the entry fee and then buy some tulips. And it's fun too. And we have bands and food trucks, and it's a fun time. And the Daymark residents come over and they hang out, and a lot of times they get up and sing or dance with the bands.
Right.
So
that's cute. And I'm sure people know that it's what the cause is for also.
Yeah, you tulipalooza.org, and you'll see the 13 beneficiaries, and then it says what it's for.
Okay.
Why I raised the money is to pay scholarships for those residents that couldn't otherwise afford it. Now, the
Okay.
other, like Easter Seals and Goodwill, and others are YMCA, that goes to them, whatever they can raise.
Okay. All right. So the tulips are separate. That's the 501c3, and that's for the scholarships. Okay. Then how are you paying staff and your electric bills and all that kind of stuff? Where is that money coming from? Do you still have to fundraise for that, or the residents pay?
Residents pay. So it's like any resident, a real estate deal. So residents pay $3,700 a month, and it's funded through, right now it's not making money. We're 100 residents now. We're getting close to break even.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry. You're breaking up. We're going to have to wrap this up soon because I think our bandwidth is like tired or something. Okay. I'm sorry. Say that again. It's $3,700 a month.
Yep. $3,700 a month. And that's how it's funded, but the deficit's funded by my investors.
Okay. And how many residents are there now?
100.
100. Okay.
Right at 100.
Okay. And how many are you like at full capacity, or you're taking more members?
Capacity is 200.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you can still fit another 100.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have people from out of state that have their kids there? Okay.
I bet you out of the 100, it's 25% are out of state, maybe 30. There's just not many options out there, as you know. We've got, New York, California, Florida, Illinois,
Wow.
Arkansas, Oklahoma. I would say, 25 or probably 30, 25 or 30 of them.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm glad to know that that there's an option out there. But as you said, they have to be pretty independent. What about their meals and everything? Like, are they prepared for them, or they cook for themselves, or how does that work?
So everybody has their own private bedroom, bathroom, and closet. And so typical, like Michael, he has his own bedroom, and he has a roommate, Mark, who has his own bedroom, and then they share a common area that it's a living room and kitchen. So if they're certified to use the microwave and the stove, which that's what we have in the classroom building, we've got a kitchen there so that they get trained how to use it. If they can't, then we just unplug it in their cottage. But yeah, they can cook in their cottage if they want. No one wants to, because they get to go up to the dining hall, and there's 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner served at the dining room.
Okay. Yeah, you're fitting the model that's in my head. Yeah.
It's resort style living. He's got it's a great, I'd like to live there. And that was my goal, is for all the parents to come in and say, I'd love to live here.
Right.
And they're like, the residents aren't perfect, like I said. But no one needs one-on-one. Everybody can handle their ADLs. They can feed themselves, bathe themselves, and dress themselves. Mm-hmm. And those are the 3 requirements. And then, no behavioral issues, meaning aggressive behavior.
Right.
But otherwise, we know that people have been living at home for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're going to need some prompting. But it's incredible to see the growth and that happens when they get to Daymark and parents come back and say, I didn't know he could do that.
Right. So now I'm thinking in my head, okay, $3,700 a month, that's more than what their SSI is. And what happens someday when the parents aren't around anymore? How does this get paid for? And I'm guessing the parents have to leave a trust to them to cover that cost.
Yeah. You don't have the funds to pay for it. Hopefully one day the government comes in and helps subsidize like they do with, seniors. But now, and I knew that our customer base can be limited potentially. And then the second biggest hurdle is letting go, parents letting go. There becomes this codependency, but I didn't realize that it was going to take as long. The younger generation is letting go earlier, so they're conditioned really to let go, like that. Here at preschool, that's a normal next step after my baby, becomes 18 months old, which is when we start taking them at the Rise School. And then my hope is, high school. The next step is somewhere like a Daymark, where it's not back in the house, unless again everybody's situation is different. My goal is that everybody with special needs finds independence, whatever that definition of independence is to them.
All right. John, thank you so much for being here today and telling us all about Daymark. I would like to just leave some contact information for everybody. If they're interested and they think that Daymark might be a fit for their child, who do they contact?
They can call Daymark's main line,
Mhm.
972-525-2700.
Okay.
Make sure.
And they can look it up online also. There's a website.
Oh, they can look
right?
it up online. Yeah, so you can ask for, I mean, really, the front desk will answer, and they can, anybody, Molly, Rosie, Courtney,
Okay.
Erica, Tiffany,
Very good. What's the website?
is daymarkliving.com.
Daymarkliving.com. Okay, terrific. I'm going to type that in on the bottom. So if anybody wants to, they can look it up online. They can see photos and see what the place is all about and see what it's like. And then if they want to check it out, they can contact somebody through the website. I want to come to Tulipalooza.
You should. It's fun. It's going to be a great time. I mean, like I said, we've got bands and food trucks and lots of tulips.
Yeah. And hopefully good weather. Your weather's not that good there today. You'd think it'd be hot in Texas.
No,
But
it'll be better by then. Today, we've got a little New Jersey weather. It's
yeah,
24 degrees and drizzling.
yeah, we switched.
No one knows what to do here.
Yeah. No, it's funny. My daughter lives in North Carolina now, and she laughs. She says they get an inch of snow and everything shuts down.
That's exactly.
Nobody knows.
Yes.
They don't know how to drive in the snow.
That's exactly what happened today here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep,
but
we
thank
see it
you
on the news.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out and getting us out there. I mean, it's all about awareness, right? I mean,
Yes,
and
yes.
sharing, ideas and sharing successes, and everybody's got a different view on what works and what doesn't work, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I
Right.
think just the more everybody can find out about others, and especially the successful ones, life is going to be better for our kids, especially.
Yeah, I'm interviewing a couple of different people that have very different models. So that's why I wanted to hear all about yours, and yours is my favorite.
Well, you're sweet. Thank you. I appreciate getting us out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share it to everyone. All right. Again, thank you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it very much. And you have a good night. Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
Cindy.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.